Not sure how high it goes up, so let's go stick around a little bit longer.
Welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. There's something going on in the show Hawkeye. There's definitely a greater evil behind everything, the one below all, who's pulling the strings, Mephisto!
Not the beast! Ah!
Nah, I'm kidding, but there is definitely a hidden villain in this show, just like every live-action show that Marvel Studios has made so far. Clint even alludes directly to this in episode 3.
No, there's someone above Maya. Someone you don't want to mess with.
So we've put together the definitive list of candidates, examined all the clues, and I've got my theories ready to go. And you should play along with us. Analyze the clues and let us know in the comments or at me on Twitter with your own theories. So the biggest set of clues we have so far is this conversation between Armand and Eleanor Bishop in episode 1. Now you can't actually hear most of it, but closed captions reveal what we need to hear. So first of all, what's the little empire of hers? Bishop Security is a successful company, but it doesn't seem like an empire. Plus, empire is usually a word you use when there's something criminal involved. Also, built on a lie. Eleanor then says, so this empire that Eleanor has built is something that she did alone after her husband was killed in the Chitauri attack. As we saw in episode 1, they were going broke.
Okay, we have to sell the penthouse.
And then all of a sudden, they're doing fine. This is also telling us that Armand saw something with his own eyes that told him the truth. He even repeats. Then they bicker for a moment, and then the conversation ends with,
I've got powerful friends too, but I don't want to mess with.
Now Kate hears this and takes this to mean that Armand is threatening her mother. But the key word here is that I have powerful friends too, noting that Eleanor has powerful friends who are backing up her lie. Then, of course, Armand sneaks off to an illicit auction, implying that everyone at this party might be a little bit involved in the life. You know, this little thing of ours, as Tony Soprano would say. And most importantly, this secret villain commissioned the Tracksuit Mafia to steal the watch that was recovered from the Avengers compound. So let's go over a few possibilities before I tell you my favorite theory. First of all, there's Sharon Carter. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier revealed that she is either the power broker or working for the power broker. She was selling art illegally in the Madripoorian underground. Then, when she's offered a place in the government, she makes this call.
Start lining up our buyers. Super soldiers might be off the menu, but we're about to have full access to government secrets, prototype weapons, you name it.
Now, we don't know if she's talking to the power broker or one of her underlings, but she's definitely a mover and a shaker in the underworld. And she might even be a Skrull, as we theorized in this video. But I don't know. I feel like Sharon Carter is going to stay in the Captain America universe as Sam's next big villain in his own movie. Also, we know that the person behind the Tracksuit Mafia is called Uncle, and this is him touching the cheek of a young Maya. So it could be Sharon Carter, but with a middleman in between. And there's also Jay Link, who became the new head of the Ten Rings at the end of Shang-Chi. But again, I think she's being saved for Shang-Chi's own franchise. But you know, it actually would be interesting to see if Ronan did attack the Ten Rings during the blip. My guess is no, because the organization was so secret that not even the Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. knew about it. So here's another possibility, which I admit is a big stretch, but it's a lot of fun. Kang the Conqueror. In the comics, Kang used a front corporation called Kang, spelled with a Q, to buy Avengers Tower. We even saw this version of the tower in Loki. Now the watch could obviously be a nod toward the time-traveling villain. Also, it is item number 268, and who did the Avengers fight in issue 268? Kang the Conqueror. Two reasons I think this could be Kang. The watch could be some kind of quantum gateway that Tony Stark built. Kang would steal it to prevent the Avengers from being able to navigate through the quantum realm. So why would he care what the Avengers do in the quantum realm? Because in Ant-Man and the Wasp, we saw this domed city, which looks an awful lot like Chronopolis, Kang's city that he rules in the comics. And he is using the Tracksuit Mafia instead of getting the watch himself because he doesn't want to interfere directly in the timeline because it would cause the wrong reality to branch off. But I think there's another reason why Kang can tie into this show. The MCU is clearly setting up the Young Avengers. That team includes Kate Bishop, Wanda's twins, Kid Loki, Isaiah Bradley's grandson, Cassie Lang, and America Chavez, who's about to be introduced in Doctor Strange 2. But another founding member of the Young Avengers was Iron Lad, a teenage Kang from the future. So this watch could also be a piece of time travel tech that can bring Iron Lad from the future into the past. Now that's a fun theory, but it's probably a little too complicated for a show that only has 3 more episodes. So how about Jacques? He's the most obvious villain.
Butterscotch.
I mean, he's a stepdad, and movies and TV shows have taught me that step-parents are almost always evil. And I do think that Jacques is up to no good, but he's not the mastermind here. That's going to be someone else. The number one theory that most people have is, of course, the Kingpin. Now, if you haven't read the comics or seen the show Daredevil, the Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk, is the crime lord above crime lords. His archenemy is Daredevil, who's always trying to find evidence to put him away. Now, Vincent D'Onofrio gave us a brilliant portrayal of Kingpin in the Daredevil Netflix show. And even though that show was supposed to be set in the MCU, it was made by a different division of Marvel Entertainment, so it's always been a bit questionable if the Netflix shows actually take place in this same universe. But now there are rumors that Charlie Cox will return as Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home. So Marvel Studios has opened up the door to letting the Netflix heroes back into the club. But not you, Iron Fist. Not you. So, why Kingpin? Well, first of all, there's a connection in the comics. Kingpin was in charge of the Tracksuit Mafia in the Hawkeye series. He also employed Maya's father as a hitman and then raised her after he was killed. He could also be this mysterious uncle figure. Now, this does look a lot like his hand, and that's a cufflink. In the Daredevil show, Kingpin was especially proud of his cufflinks.
That's why I still wear these. To remind myself that I'm not cruel for the sake of cruelty. That I'm not my father.
There's also the name of the body shop where the Tracksuit Mafia are killed, Fat Man Auto Repair. One of the front corporations tied to Bishop Security is called Sloan Limited, and Sloan was the name of one of Kingpin's lackeys from the comics. And there are a few other ways this fits. In the show Daredevil, Kingpin joins with a cabal of other crooks to rebuild Manhattan after the Battle of New York, the same battle that opens up this show. And when the auctioneer introduces the Ronin sword, he says,
almost completely annihilating the status and power of the head of organized crime.
So what if Clint, as Ronin, cleaned out most of the underworld, but he didn't get everyone? He left Fisk alive, so now there's a power vacuum that has allowed Fisk to consolidate his criminal empire. But then there's the question of who killed the Tracksuit Mafia. I know that we're meant to think that it was Clint dressed as Ronin, but hold on. Clint says,
Ronin hit the supplier on the other side, and then hit Tracksuit Upper Management.
So Clint went after the Tracksuit Mafia's supplier overseas and then went after their leadership. But this is not necessarily the leadership of the Tracksuit Mafia that Clint went after. Or maybe this is Clint, but he was directed to take down the tracksuits by someone else, like the Kingpin. Let me explain. In the comics, the Kingpin ordered the death of Maya's father, partially so he could control Maya's gifts and raise her himself to become an assassin. He could have done the same thing in this show, or he could have also commissioned someone else to dress as Ronin and carry out this hit. He actually did this in Daredevil Season 3, manipulating the villain Bullseye to dress up as Daredevil and assassinate a witness. Or there's an even more likely candidate. Who else in this show is duplicitous and uses a sword? Jacques. Jacques could have even been the original Ronin who Clint took the suit from.
Make a wonderful trip out rumpets.
So when Jacques stole the sword, he was actually recovering his own property. In the comics, several people have been Ronin. First it was Maya, then Clint, and eventually Blade, and then later the villain Bullseye. So a lot of those pieces fit, but they don't include the most likely villain of the series, Derek and Eleanor Bishop, Kate's mom and dad. But wait, her dad died in the Battle of New York. Did he though? We don't see his body. The Bishops are having financial trouble, but then after the attack, Eleanor builds up an empire. Maybe they faked Derek's death to claim the life insurance and then used that to stake the new company. Remember what Armand says. He might have seen Derek Bishop alive and well and realized that the whole narrative of the widowed Eleanor Bishop was false. Or Eleanor could have just killed him off screen to collect the insurance money. And that powerful friend of Eleanor's that Armand mentioned, that could be the Kingpin. When he was rebuilding the city after the Battle of New York, he could have teamed up with Eleanor to create a security company that was a front for his criminal empire. After all, in the database, Kazi is listed as a client of Bishop Security. So, what about the watch? Well, more than likely, it is some piece of Stark tech that controls drones or can hack into any system. So Eleanor sets up the robbery to steal the watch. Notice that when the lights flicker, she doesn't seem fazed at all. She even seems proud of herself, like it's all going according to plan. And then later, it sure does sound like she's trying to find out how much Kate knows.
That was crazy. An explosion? Some kind of black market auction?
But then, why didn't she just buy the watch? Because for one thing, she is not invited to the auction. Everyone thinks that she is a legitimate businesswoman. And also, she doesn't want everyone to know that she's after the watch, because then its value would be known and it would be harder to get. And here's my last big theory to close out the video. Uncle is not Kingpin. It's Derek Bishop. Kate's dad. Now this would link Kate and Maya. They both have a father figure who lived a double life. Also, Echo's about to get her own Disney Plus show, so I doubt if she's going to stay a villain. So it can't be that she's after Clint this whole time. It's got to be some other, more nefarious figure. But that's just my thoughts and theories. Again, let me know yours in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.